Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about a BFL I fished in 2017 on Table Rock Lake in the Ozark MLF BFL Ozark Division on Table Rock Lake. Before I get into that video, if you guys would, if you are not a subscriber to the channel yet, if you would subscribe to the channel, that's a great way to support the channel. If you guys like the content I'm putting out, like the video. If you got any questions, comment on it. That helps get the content out there, helps keep the content up there. Get it out to more people, shows that people are responding to it, so YouTube recommends it a little more out there, and it helps get the content out there and build the channel. Okay, so let's get into the video. It's the Table Rock Lake Ozark BFL, April 8th of 2017. I just jumped in this event. I didn't fish. I might have fished the others. I can't remember that year if I fished all the other ones or just this event. But I remember this one specifically because I finished 26th out of 151 boats, and my co-angler also took a check along with me. So I want to break down what we did that day, where we caught our fish, what the conditions were like, and why the fish were there. Okay, so this was April 8th. It was decently warm. I think the water temperature, it's been a few years back. So the water temperature, I remember, was around the mid 50s in practice. And then I just practiced the week before because that's the only time I could get off. I didn't get a couple days off before or a day before to fish it. So I fished it the weekend before, and I fished in Cow Creek, which will be the first area I'm going to show you guys. And I fished in there, and I caught them really well in there, and I was throwing a shaky head. I was throwing a 5/16 ounce Pro Shaky made by 2K Jigs, and I was throwing a red pumpkin salt shaker worm, a 6-inch red pumpkin salt shaker worm made by Big Hammer Lures. Now, and my co-angler, he was throwing a Carolina rig with a baby brush hog. I won't give you the color on that. Don't want to give his secrets out on that, but he was throwing a baby brush hog on a Carolina rig. So why were the fish where they was? The weekend before, I was tearing them up on that shaky head. And then I showed up there the first day, and like I said, the water temperature had dropped when I got there. It was about down to 51 to 52. So it dropped 4 degrees. So I started off in Cow Creek. You guys will see all the stuff here. I'll jump into it and get it broke down after I kind of talk about how the day went. I started off there, and it was pea gravel banks where I started off on, and I'd done good there a few years prior and was just an ounce out of a check. That was in May fishing in these areas, and my co-angler also in the event this year caught one in May there on the Carolina rig. So it's a good area when they're moving up to spawn. There was a lot of spawners in there in the last tournament I fished this year. So that is a good area to focus on that pea gravel. But when that water temperature dropped, these fish pushed back out, and they pushed back out to the bigger rocks and these submerged trees out there because they weren't ready to spawn yet, and that water temp dropped. So they moved back out. So that'll kind of help you when I start explaining everything, why everything happened the way it did. So the first picture here is going to show the areas that I fished. The blue area is the first area that I went to, which is Cow Creek. The green area is the second area. I'm not exactly sure what that is called. And then the red area is the third area, and it is up there around Indian Point Marina. I don't know exactly the name of that creek that runs up north through there, but it's right there, the one that runs past Indian Point Marina there in the picture. You can see that. So now in the second picture here, which was the blue, the first area is Cow Creek. The red dots right there was where my co-angler caught his 3 keepers that day. He caught those on that Carolina rig, and that bank over there on the left side is more pea gravel and more suitable for spawning areas back in there. So those fish were coming up there to feed. I know they move up there to spawn. They also move out there in the pre-spawn once they start moving up, and then the post-spawn, they're really good too on that pea gravel bank. They stay a little longer there after they spawn because of that pea gravel. They like that pea gravel more during the spawn and after the spawn, and then right when they're ready to move up to spawn, about 55 degrees and above, up until about 70 degrees or so is when they like that pea gravel banks I found on Table Rock. So he caught those 3 keepers there on the Carolina rig with the baby brush hog, and I didn't have a fish yet. I actually didn't catch my first fish until 11 o'clock. And that first one I caught would be the green. That would be on your right side over there. That was my one keeper I'd caught so far at that point. And that was at 11 a.m. So I knew I had to make some changes, and I'd caught that fish out there deeper. So now we'll go into the next picture here, which is kind of a detailed breakdown of why the fish were in there and how I changed my pattern up to catch those fish. So the purple right there, that is the main creek channel running in there. That is Cow Creek running in. And then the yellow is the old creek beds running off of the main creek channel. These are the old creek beds that used to run back in there. And you can see that from the map looking at it on there, right where the yellow runs. And then the red out there on the left, that is the creek, or that's the submerged trees out there. Now, the yellow side doesn't have as many, or the left side don't have as many submerged trees on it. So when I caught this fish out there, I changed my pattern up. I'll get into that here in a minute, how I changed that up. And the fish were I was fishing anywhere from 15 to 30 foot. When I was out on the bank, the pea gravel to the left side, I was fishing in about 18 to 20 foot of water, 15 to 20 foot of water right in there, keeping the boat in that 15 to 20 foot range. And then when I moved out to the other side where the submerged trees are on the right side, I moved out to about 25 foot is where I caught those fish. 25 to 30 foot is where I was keeping the bank, keeping the boat. Now, the fish on the left, those had pulled out. They were moving up to spawn, and they pulled out a little deeper. They were still there on that pea gravel, but there wasn't as many that I'd caught in practice, and I was throwing that shaky head. They were a little bit suspended, and I'll get into why that shaky head worked when I moved out to the trees being suspended. So they pulled out. That's where he caught them with the C rig, the Carolina rig, on that pea gravel banks over there. Now, my keeper came on the 5/16 ounce 2K Jigs shaky head with a red pumpkin salt shaker 6-inch worm from Big Hammer Lures. Now, those came off of the submerged trees right there, right off that main creek channel. Now, when I say suspended, you think shaky head, you don't think suspended, but I like to work that shaky head back. If you guys watch a video, I got a video on my YouTube channel about how I work that shaky head. I call it the scoot and shake, and it also works in those trees for suspended fish. You might be wondering, how does a shaky head work for suspended fish? Well, before front-facing sonar, I couldn't see these fish. So I would use that, and I didn't like drop shot, and so I'd use the shaky head. You basically just throw it out, and then you bring it back to you, and it comes up through the limbs. And the way I shake it, and I kind of shake it, coming back, I just kind of scoot it and shake it, and then it comes up through the limbs, and it kind of looks like a shad or a worm coming up through there. I'm not exactly sure what it imitates, but the fish like it on table rock. So that's where this suspended fish come in, how I was catching those on a shaky head. So I caught that first fish at 11 a.m. out there on that creek channel, right? That main creek channel where the trees were, the submerged trees. So I knew another area that I'd fished in practice that was kind of similar to this. So right after that, I ran to that area, which is the second area I'm going to talk about, which was the green area. Now, the purple up there, that is the main river channel coming through right there. That's the White River, I believe it is. It's the main river right there. And then the yellow, just like before, is the old creek beds coming off. That's kind of like little highways, kind of like the main river channels and your main creek channels are basically like your interstate. Just picture it that way. It's basically like your interstates for traveling, okay? Just picture that for your bass. Now, the yellow, the old creek beds, picture that as, off ramps and side roads coming off that main channel, going into the cities, okay? So that's what these fish follow up to spawn. They come off of those and they follow these ditches, is what they call them. And you can look at it kind of like interstates and highways. They use these to get up there to spawn. That's how they go. Just kind of like, you would use the interstate to get where you're going. Then you get off of those to go to the areas you want to go. You want to go shop. You want to go eat. Whatever you got to do, got to go to work. So picture it like that, and that'll help you guys pattern these fish. So now how does this relate to the first fish I caught, was because there was deeper water here, and then that ditch ran through there in the main river channel. It was close to it. So the red in there, that was my second keeper I'd caught. I moved out to about 22 to 25 foot of water. The green there is a submerged tree line, just like I'd caught that one before. And then I caught that fish there, and then I didn't know where to go from there because I had nothing else in practice that I'd found. I didn't know a whole lot about Table Rock at this time. So I just looked at the map real quick on my Navionics, on my graph, and I looked up Indian Point up there, and whichever creek that is that runs up there by Indian Creek. And I said, that bank looks pretty good right there. It's got a creek channel that runs close to it. It's got some steeper banks. I said, let's run up there and, see if we can salvage this day. It was 1 o'clock at this point. I needed 3 more keepers. I'm like, I got to change something up. This is working. Let's run up there. I've never fished it before, and let's give it a shot. So I ran up there to that area, which was the red area circled in the first picture. And I ran up in there and started in there. And then that's where I caught my 3rd, 5th, and 5th keepers that day, which got me into check range. So it salvaged my day. Might have been a little lower, but had I figured this out a little earlier, I would have had a bigger bag. So the purple right in there in this picture, that is the main creek channel, guys. Once again, that's your main creek channel. That's basically your interstate running through that creek right there. That section, that cove that runs back in there, the creek, not cove, but main creek that runs back in there, that's a bigger creek. They call it like, it's not the main river channel, but it's the main creek channel running back in there. So the yellow, that's the old creek beds again running off there. That's your side roads coming off of your interstate. And then the green, once again, is a submerged tree line. And now I want to emphasize this. This was steeper and bigger rocks too. They pulled out to the bigger rocks. So I noticed that from the second fish I caught that they were on the bigger rocks as well in these trees. So I said, this looks really good. Let's start fishing here. So that's where I started fishing. And I caught my 3rd one you can see there, which is the furthest one to the south. I was working south to the north. I was going into the wind. If I remember right, the wind was blowing out of the north. So I like to point it into the wind when throwing that shaky head, so I'm not moving too fast, and I can control how fast I'm going into that wind. So I can control how fast the boat's moving. If you go with the wind, you're going too fast for that shaky head. You can't control really how fast you're moving. So pointed my boat into the wind, went into the wind, so I could fish that shaky head at the speed I needed to get it down there deeper and work it back through those suspended trees. Now, they was there because the cold front came in and it had pushed them out. I actually used this pattern a couple of years later. It might have been a year or two later in the Toyota series there to get just at a check range there in the Toyota series. But they did the same exact thing on me. Now, I did not run to Cow Creek. I wish I would have ran to Cow Creek and I could have picked up. I just needed another, I think it was 2 or 3 ounces to get into check range, but I just stayed in that creek where the fish were. Didn't leave them. I just needed a couple ounces. I think I could have got the bigger fish at a Cow Creek, but I didn't do that in that Toyota series. But that's just all things. That's lessons learned. It's time on the water. That's why I'm explaining this to you guys in my YouTube video, so you guys kind of know what's going on when you see this happening, and you don't have to adjust, but you're still going to have to adjust on the water, but it'll make it easier for you guys. Like if you see this video, you'll say, oh yeah, that's right. I seen that on, Levi's channel. So now I can go do that myself and I know what's going on. Or if you show up to the lake and you have these conditions, you know where to catch these fish. You know how to look for them, trying to help you guys learn how to pattern fish. The biggest thing is time on the water, guys. That is the biggest thing with any fishing. That's why I'm starting to come into myself here at an older age, was because when I was younger, I was working a lot and didn't have the time on the water needed. Now I'm in a position where I can get out on the water more, and I've had more time on the water throughout the years, and I'm starting to put all this stuff together slowly myself. I didn't have the resources to reach out to. We didn't have a whole lot of YouTube. Now we have all them resources available to everybody. So everything I learned has pretty much been by trial and error by myself, and it takes a lot of time on the water, guys. Even with these videos, it takes a lot of time on the water. And front-facing sonar has really taught me a lot as well. A lot of guys like to say, oh, it don't catch the fish, but it's not just about catching the fish with the front-facing sonar. It's about all these years spent, just like I spent all these years learning this stuff without the front-facing sonar. And now you can just go out with the front facing sonar and you can learn and see all these things without actually having to get out and go around and find these areas and learn how to pattern these fish. It takes a lot of time out of it with the front facing sonar and all the electronics nowadays. That's kind of why I push back on the electronics, is because a lot of older people spent the time out there to figure this stuff out, and the younger generation is just picking it right up like that because they can see everything going on under the water. And that is a lot of time. I know I'm not older yet. I kind of speak like I'm older. I'm still just 34. So I'm still a younger guy in a way, but I kind of have the old ways because that's how I learned how to fish. Learned how to fish, from Bill Dance, watching Roland Martin, Kevin Van Dam. From those guys, Bill Dance was actually a big inspiration of mine growing up because he was one of the big fishing shows on TV. So I refer to those old guys, and that's kind of who I watched, and that's who, I idolized growing up. Ike Anelli was another one of those, and he was a, real big instinct guy, and these guys all relied on instincts. That's why I push back on the front-facing sonar. That's why I have the negativity towards that front-facing sonar. It's not because it's not a great thing, because it is a great thing. It teaches us so much that it's just these younger generations, we spent so many years learning this stuff, and the younger generation just pick it up just like that. They pick this stuff up so quickly because of the front-facing sonar. So that is how I caught them at Table Rock. Hopefully this will help you guys pattern fish in the future, especially on Table Rock, which is a deep, clear lake. And when they go deeper, it's a little harder to find them. Or like I said, when the cold fronts come in the springtime, the fish pull back out to those areas basically. And if you follow those ditches, that really helps you understand those bass. So hopefully this helps you guys. And next time you're out on Table Rock, springtime's coming up here. April's coming along. If you get any cold fronts or if you're out on Table Rock, try these areas out. Get your guys' self some confidence up, and hopefully it helps you guys catch more bass. Thank you.